Exploring the impact of climate change on coral reefs of the world using Google Earth. There are many factors that are negatively impacting our oceans, including ocean acidification, plastic pollution, agricultural runoff, shoreline erosion. Since 2011, Google has expanded its map service to the world's ocean. Google started with the ocean floor. The ocean floor contains dramatic landscapes, volcano ridges, lofty peaks, wide plains, and deep valleys. Thanks to a new synthesis of seafloor topography released through Google Earth, armchair explorers can now view 5% of the deep ocean floor in far greater details than way before. Oceanographers at Columbia University, Lemuel's Daughtry Earth Observatory, developed a new feature from scientific data collected on research cruises. Features that were visible as 1 kilometer grid, 0.62 mile, now have resolution tightening to around 100 meters, 109 yards. The 100-meter resolution in the new views is still generally less than resolution on land, which goes to centimeters in some areas. It later was extended to underwater photography of coral reefs around the world. This allows students to enter a number of ecosystems around the world and do species identifications, and cross-reference the visual work with the scientific literature that focus on human impact within this species ecosystem. This presentation will take the audience to coral reefs around the world and demonstrate the impact our species is having on these delicate ecosystems.
Hello, I'm Koshi Noor and I represent our marine chemistry class. I'm going to talk to you about the most frequently visited dive site in the Key Largo National Marine Sanctuary, and likely the world. It is known as the Molasses Reef. Coral reefs are the most diverse and unique ecosystems on the planet. Molasses Reef, which is known for its crystal clear water, many fishes, and many boulder corals. It lies in the southeast offshore of the island of Key Largo and is to the east of famous John Pennekamp Coral Reef State Park. It is a classic outer reef with a well-defined coral growth spur and groove system. Molasses Reef develops along John D. Pennekamp Coral Reef State Park's southernmost fringes, with depths varying from 10 to 50 feet. Molasses Reef got its name in terms of the Florida Reef. In Florida Keys, there are many reefs near Molasses Reef. The most nearest are French Reef Restoration Area, Coral Restoration Nursery, and Key Largo. In Florida Keys, scientists have estimated that there may be another 1 to 8 million undiscovered species of organisms living in and around the reefs. The Florida Keys region was known for its large population of green turtles decades ago before they were hunted by humans to near extinction worldwide and encounter with a sea turtle. Specifically, Molasses Reef hasn't been a drug or a cure to anything, but corals around molasses may be a cure for different diseases. The biodiversity is considered key to finding new medicines for the 21st century. Many drugs are now being developed from coral reef animals and plants as possible cures for cancer, arthritis, human bacteria infections, viruses, and other diseases. The Keys ecosystem is composed of a small area of land. Therefore, the impacts of the human activities are magnified. Impacts include water pollution, increased invasive species, overfishing, negative effects from boating, urban development, the global climate change. Human activity may have adverse effects in and around marine environments. More than 4 million tourists visit the Keys every year, with 70% personally spending time in the National Marine Sanctuary of Florida Keys. Molasses Reef is the most beautiful collection of reefs in all Florida. Molasses is a vast reef complex with diving depths of about 10 to 70 feet. Molasses has over 30 mooring balls, ensuring every location is a new adventure. Molasses Reef features high-profile spur and groove coral formations at depths ranging from 10 to 40 feet. This place is also great for both diving and snorkeling. Seaward sand shoots at 40 to 60 feet down divide a gently sloping, hard flat bottom lined with hard and soft corals along with a variety of sponges. The drop-off begins in the range of 50 to 60 feet and continues down to the range of 70 to 100 feet at different angles. You can find excellent drift diving in Molasses Reef. The food chain affects us all, especially living parts of the food chain when it starts from plant life and ends with an animal. In the previous years, crown of thorns starfish have been affected many lives of coral by feeding on them. Crown of thorns starfish are marine and invertebrate that feed on corals, and outbreaks of tens of thousands of individuals have been known to cause serious harm to coral reefs in some areas around the Great Barrier Reef. Crown of thorns starfish will strip a coral reef during an epidemic when predator numbers explode. Examination of their DNA and proteins in waterborne plumes reveals the mechanisms they use to attract another starfish as they spawn. The Florida Keys earn a reputation among divers and snorkelers as being where American waters become tropical, making the island chain a prime spot for an underwater adventure. Molasses Reef, a lively subwater ecosystem off Key Largo, is one of the best known locations for divers and snorkelers alike. Molasses Reef is hard to miss from the surface because of its beauty. The reef's north end is about 10 to 15 feet of water, making it suitable for snorkelers. Since the Florida Keys are situated on important shipping roads, the area has experienced shipwrecks for centuries. The area's shallow waters, the sporadically occurring coral reefs, and low land profile have led to a large number of Keys region shipwrecks. Extensive databases were developed for the identification of shipwrecks in the Florida Keys area. It is expected that the effects on the human community will be beneficial, so the results are not likely to be contentions among Florida Keys residents at all. The restoration of the reef would, in effect, create a more core habitat for divers to enjoy and thus benefit the human population. The proposed intervention is supposed to have negligible effects individually. The accumulated impacts of restored reefs within the reef tract of Florida Keys are projected to be a positive influence for the coral reef environment. Such reefs have been damaged by ship landings and are now being restored to approximate their original state of pre-injury. This will provide protection for marine life and promote the recruitment of corals. In Molasses Reef, there have been reports indicating that 50 to 70% of coral reefs worldwide are directly threatened by human-associated activity. Coral communities experience persistent environment disturbances in Florida Keys. The Florida Keys ecosystem consists of diverse ecosystems, including mangroves, coral reefs, and pinelands that are rich in unique species. Humans, too, are part of the environment, and their behaviors affect all ecosystems, animals, and plants that inhabit them. Human population in the region known as the Florida Keys or Southeast Florida has increased by more than 3.9 million from 1970 to 2008. Moreover, water contamination has risen as a result of sewage treatment and septic discharge and storm water runoff containing tar, pesticides, and heavy metals. The marine ecosystem around the Florida Keys is worsening. This is demonstrated by a reduction in the number of healthy corals, an invasion of algae into seagrass beds and reefs, a reduction in fish and shrimp stocks, and a rise in coral diseases and bleaching. Reduced freshwater flow in Florida Bay has resulted in increased plankton blooms, die-offs on sponge and seagrass, and fish kills. When corals are stressed by changes in conditions such as temperature, light, or nutrients, they expel the symbiotic algae living in their tissues, causing them to turn completely white. Also, warmer water temperatures can result in coral bleaching. In 2014, summer in South Florida, local divers noticed few changes to the corals due to weather effects. They saw below the ocean surface where corals were bleaching. Around the month of August, FKNMS received 34 reports describing the corals being pale color. Scientists monitored it for the impact of this severe bleaching to determine the extent of coral mortality. The bleaching of corals are triggered by the sea surface temperature, more than 30.5 degrees Celsius, in the Florida Keys. The mild winter and high water temperatures this spring led scientists to start looking at the long-term average water temperatures at these stations to see if the average daily temperature in the Florida Keys was consistently at or above 30.4 degrees Celsius, the trigger point for the previous bleaching. In July and August, The site called Seaman in Molasses Reef quickly exceeded this temperature level. The Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary has been working with its partners to track the current condition of corals along the reef tract to determine the severity of the bleaching outbreak. Over the last 3 decades, several new coral diseases have caused widespread mortalities. The responsible agents are known in only a few cases, and some diseases may be caused by multiple organisms. Poor water quality, increased pollution, and elevated water temperatures increase the likelihood of coral disease. Corals that create reefs need warm, clear water, low levels of nutrients, and frequent, relatively strong ocean currents. Tides in the Molasses Reef area vary approximately 0.6 to 0.8 meters. Florida Current is the most prominent current which affects Molasses Reef. The Florida Current is its surface current that flows east and then north offshore to the Florida Keys, less than 400 meters deep. Most notably, corals cannot withstand great water quality changes for extended periods of time. Corals need clear water that lets sunlight through. They don't thrive well when the water is opaque. Sediment and plankton can cloud water, which decreases the amount of sunlight that reaches zooxanthellae. As said before, warm water temperature, the reef-building corals require warm water conditions to survive. Molasses reef exposure to open ocean circulation of dry, relatively low nutrient Gulf Stream waters, and turbidity protection. High nutrient levels, rapidly fluctuating temperature, and salinity of waters of Florida Bay provide a suitable climate for coral reef construction. With few exceptions, the water quality in around Molasses Reef is fine, although the levels of phosphorus have risen over the past 5 years for coral reefs construction.